there's a lot of this talk by Western nations about pulling their factories out of China, and I think to an extent, if it's something strategic, I think that the coronavirus has highlighted that maybe some of these countries should have some of this sort of super strategic equipment manufactured in their country, and I would agree with that. But I think as a sort of general rule, I think manufacturing isn't going to be leaving China anytime soon. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. One is that, over the last sort of 10 or 12 years or maybe longer, there's been massive investment in China. One, sort of the logistics infrastructure and manufacturing infrastructure. China have some of the most sort of modern automated factories in the world. And the other thing is supply chain. So if you look at China, various areas of China are very good for certain products. So if you look at Guangzhou makes a lot of leather products. Shenzhen makes electronics products. Shantou makes toys. And they have what are in China called clusters of factories. So if you're in Guangzhou and you're making handbags, all the factories that produce the leather are there. All the factories that produce the buckles are there. All the factories that produce, all the other bits and pieces that go with a handbag are there. So if one of your suppliers doesn't have buckles, within an hour you can procure them from somewhere else. So they have this cluster supply chain infrastructure in place. And 2 days ago, I was with a factory in Dongguan, and the owners of that factory are actually Taiwanese people. And I was talking to him. He says, there's quite a lot of pressure from the Chinese government for us to bring factories out the mainland into Taiwan. And he says, but there's just no, they don't have this sort of supply chain infrastructure in Taiwan. So even though you have, factories in Taiwan, they still have to procure a lot of the parts from mainland because there's nowhere else that manufactures these things. So I think this is something to really remember when, Westerners are talking of bringing factories back. One, are the people going to invest? Just to set up a plant like an LCD panel plant, you're talking of billions upon billions of dollars investment, maybe months and months and months to get that production line up and running. And I just think the Western companies won't invest that because their companies in the West are too led by shareholder value. So yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on this situation. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
So, while we're on the topic here of, China, the factory of the world, my experience, and I've been doing business in China since 2003. I would love to call up a North American company or even a European company to order the products for, our online business. The problem is that most of these people that we would order from either in Europe or North America are distributors on behalf of, Chinese suppliers. So, what we do there is we just go right directly to the suppliers and try to cut out the middleman to help our margins. So, I mean, this is the thing that a lot of people in North America, they want to buy product that is made in their own country, and I can appreciate that. Mm-hmm. But we looked at the assembly of even cars, certain brake parts, certain fenders, bumpers, all that is imported and it's assembled in other parts of the world. And I want to bridge this gap here by saying, like, if these countries work together on trade, it really does benefit the consumer. That is, first of all, that is definitely to the advantage for the consumer. They save money. So this kind of, let's get rid of China on the, from the assembly standpoint doesn't really work out. And I agree with you, Lee. I mean, I walked the streets of Shenzhen. I went out, took a car out of town outside of Shenzhen to look at the factories. These factories have massive investments, millions upon billions of dollars invested in, robotics, the staff that is working there. I mean, they have finding that skilled staff to work. this is not China of the old, where people used to think that people would be making they call them sweatshops and stuff like that. That is, when I hear that, that is such an old stereotype of China. I still get that today, where people say, but they're running sweatshops there. I mean, the average wage of a person working in Shenzhen now, is skyrocketed from, I think, even in the last 5 years.
Absolutely,
that's a very expensive city to live in. And as well as, once again, the country continues to invest in infrastructure. And I'll explain why this is important. And, if you guys did see our photo, it shows a massive port with cargo containers. Well, let's go back about 5-6 years ago. I used to import items, and they used to bounce through from China. They used to bounce through Hong Kong, and they would go in, because I'm air freighting most of my stuff. And we would get about a 7 to 8 day turnaround. And now, when we order stuff from China, with all the infrastructure in place, the new ports down there in Shenzhen and stuff, we have managed to be able to get an item, source it, put it on an airplane, land it, clear it in Europe in under 72 hours. Now that is unbelievable. That just shows you the investment of logistics. So, I mean, in a way, can we agree? And I'm going to go to Cyrus on this. And Cyrus, for all your viewers, Cyrus is new to the panel. He runs a channel on YouTube called Cyrus Janssen, and we'll put the links in the box there. And I encourage everybody right now to hit that subscribe button. We have seen a little bit of censoring going on a few channels here, our China channels lately. Even some big names have been kind of the algorithms playing up with us. We're getting a lot of people that are either unfortunately unsubscribed, and then they have to resubscribe. And then as well as we'll get to that later anyway. So, Cyrus, I'm going to go to you. I mean, you've spent quite a long time here in China. And, I mean, what's your thoughts on the, factory of the world? Is it working out? Is it causing problems? I mean, is this the right route for China? What's your thoughts on it?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, Alex, thanks again for having me on the show. It's so great to be here. Always enjoy chatting with you guys. And, as we just try to kind of decipher, what is going on in the world. China's always, in the news right now. And that's the one thing that I want people to always realize is, me being an American as well, kind of our biggest export, is, let's say, the American dream. And I always say this when I was living in China. I always say that every Chinese person had an American dream. Whether it was, that's why these products, for instance, the Starbucks coffee is so so popular in China. Why Nike shoes, McDonald's, Apple, all of these American companies, they thrive in China because for so long, people were admiring, America. And the big thing about it is that, if it wasn't for China and this unique relationship between China and the United States for the last 30 years, this American dream wouldn't be possible. There's a reason why, Starbucks, the shareholders of Starbucks have increased so much, over the last 15 years. Most of that growth is coming from China. I mean, Starbucks within, America is pretty saturated, but they can continue to expand in China. I mean, look at Apple, I mean, we went through this a couple of weeks ago when I said, look at the Dow Jones, look at these 30 companies, all of them have connections to China. And I just think, when we're talking about this relationship, earlier this year, there was a really interesting thing when a lot of the shoe wear executives, there was about, I'm going to say about 70 different shoe manufacturers in the United States. They had actually gone to the Oval Office and they said, look, President Trump, we have to look at this trade war, because if we're going to start, taxing all of these imports into China, this is directly going to affect the U.S. consumer. A pair of Nikes that are $100, they're going to be taxed 30% more. So it's going to be $130 for this pair of Jordans instead of $100. So that's, who's going to be the most affected of that? Obviously, it's going to be the consumer. So, I mean, I get, and I do agree. I like what Lee said is, if we're going to be moving some of these specialty factories back, and, I love it when people can make products in America. I love supporting local businesses when I'm in America, but we just have to realize that it's pretty much impossible to boycott China. If you really want to 100% boycott China, even if you don't have a product that's 100% investment made there, more than likely some parts of that are made within that. And like Lee and everybody has said here, this has been a result of decades long of investment. And this is not just a short-term thing like, we made a factory last year, let's just close it and bring it back. These have been in production for decades, and this is just billions of dollars at play. And again, China has the infrastructure. And it was just amazing to see. There's a really good show on Netflix, a good movie called American Factory. And it was about, do you see it, right? And so it was just amazing how, you have the Chinese owner, Chinese billionaire, he goes into Michigan and he buys a factory. And you saw the different cultural, conflicts that were going on there. And one of them was just simply, one of my favorite parts was when it was one of the Chinese manager. He's like, gosh, it's just so difficult. These Americans, they want to work 5 days a week. I mean, they have no work ethic here, and I mean, it's amazing. I think there's a saying in Chinese, I forget, it's like the 12-6-6. It's like you're working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, something along that line. So
996.
996. Yeah, that's what it is. So, I mean, they have a different, and again, this is why they're producing these, these goods, these factories are doing good. And this is why the world needs China. But like you said, I mean, one of the things that also gets me fired up is a lot of people, for instance, they're saying, they're attacking this week on social media. We've got some U.S. senators coming out and saying, look, LeBron James, why are you endorsing Nike? Nike is slave labor. Everybody in China is underpaid. They're all slaves. It's like, again, look at the wages. I mean, the wages from Shenzhen and these factories, it's expensive now. It's not as cheap as it was to manufacture in China. You have healthcare benefits, you have pensions, the wages have increased substantially in the last 10 years, even in the last 5. So it's not like, like we said, Chinese people are making more money and they're still producing more jobs. So it's a two-way street. I think both nations are really working great together. Chinese people are, have done a great job benefiting from the relationship of the Westerners, producing their products in there, and vice versa. The American dream is made possible because of China. And I just want everybody to realize that.
And I'm going to add to that, Cyrus. Yeah. You see, it shouldn't be, but it is. It shouldn't be, let's shut the factories down. Let's bring them back to American soils. I'm going to run through a successful story here, and this is the Apple story. If you look at the components of an Apple iPhone and how these phones are made, once you assemble them, manufacture all the parts, put them together, ship them to North America, they have a built-in 70% margin already for Apple. Yeah. Now, that means Apple can go out, they can market it, they can use, a lot of very expensive marketing techniques, advertisements, Super Bowl advertisements, you name it. Apple has the balance sheet. But that money and those profits go into Apple itself. They don't go back into China. Now, the Chinese, they make their phones. It's a high-quality product, and that squashes this only cheap products are made in China. Well, pick up your iPhone and tell me if that's a cheap product. Designed in California, by the way. So when you have a product like that or a product line like that, and you break it down and you break that margin down, in fact, it is Americans that are benefiting a lot. So why would you want to bring back this to your shores when your public company is making a very good margin on these products? And hopefully the public company is either reinvesting in R&D or reinvesting in its local economies, maybe more shops, more stores, R&D facilities. I mean, the balance sheet of Apple is quite impressive. I mean, it's $1 trillion company with hundreds of billions of dollars on its balance sheet. So that it's working. And I've always had this thing is I call it the G2 instead of the G7 or, the G20. I call it the G2. And you've got China and the United States. And if they, they can really take on the world here. And, we have these other nations that are trying, in Thailand here, we do have a lot of manufacturing. But we've had a very difficult year here in Thailand where we had a currency actually appreciate against a lot of other currencies. And a lot of factories are actually leaving Thailand now. I didn't think I would ever see that, but they're shutting down and actually leaving Thailand. So this is getting difficult. It shows that, if you have the right amount of money on infrastructure, things can things can improve. Now, I just want to say thank you very much to the super chat contribution that came in. Thank you for that. I'm going to go over to Jerry here. Jerry, factory for the world here. What's your thoughts?
Right. So I will add to what Lee first said, that factories are not going, or the business are not going anywhere soon. Right. Hey, look, we've never seen a country that lifted so many people from poverty than what China has done. I mean, they moved all these people from rural areas into cities to start work, to build the economy with the Chinese, right? Here's the thing, man. I'm sitting on the port right here. Sorry for my snuffy nose, guys. I'm sitting on the port. As I look just behind my computer screen right there, they are busy loading ships. They are still continuing doing what they are doing. I want to agree with Lee. They're not going anywhere real soon, man. Definitely not. And here's the thing to think about, that what Europe has done in the Industrial Revolution in 100 years, China did this in 30 years. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that China is going to give all of this up real soon. They're going to hold on to what they have accomplished in this 30 years. They're definitely not going to let it slip through their fingers. Definitely not. And they are so set up to still maintain this whole growth, that it's kind of impossible to, to let it slip through the fingers. That's what I want to add to Lee's point. And I heard Cyrus said that in America, they think it's cheap labor, slave labor for the Chinese to assemble all these products here in China. That's absolute nonsense. If you can go Google and fact check this, but the average Chinese person earns like about $19,000 a year, which is pretty much okay. That is 100% okay to live on. So I think it's absolute nonsense, man. It's not really slave labor. These guys are just willing to work together with their great management, which is the government, to pursue their dreams of becoming the number one economic superpower in the world. And listen to me, my call is they will reach it. There's nothing going to stop these guys.